There is one palette that has a lot of these colors, and even though some of the colors are not exact, I feel like if you have that palette, you really do not need to buy this Too Faced one. Happy video day, guys. So guess what? Today's video is going to be another Make Up Your Mind. We have a brand new palette that is releasing from Too Faced, and when I saw the previews of what this was going to look like, I said, that's a really cool palette for anybody who wants like those very neutral, natural looks. And I said, you know what? I wonder how many of the palettes that I currently own look like this one. So this is the palette on the screen right here. This is a new Too Faced Born This Way, the Natural Nudes eyeshadow palette that's going to retail for $45 US, and very pretty palette, very neutral tones. I know a lot of you guys are probably saying it's a little boring, but you guys, every once in a while, a little boring is good, especially in a big collection. It's always good to have a little bit of boring colors here and there because they could create some gorgeous, gorgeous, very useful looks. And if you guys are new to Make Up Your Mind, I just want to start this video off by telling you guys that I am not looking for dupes. This is not a dupes video. What I'm doing is looking through my collection for similar hues so that I can see what the color story looks like for the Too Faced palette to see if it's a palette that I even need to purchase. Is it A, something that I'm going to use all the time, or B, do I already kind of own that palette? So that's basically what we do here. We try to figure out if this is a palette that I really need. I always tell you guys to look through your own collection. I don't expect you to have the same palettes as me, but you guys might have palettes that might be even more similar to this. So look through your collection before you use any of your hard-earned money on a brand new palette, because you may have 2 or 3 palettes that have a lot of those colors. And guess what, guys? There's a huge chance that sometimes you wouldn't even mix these colors together. So you might even get away with using those 3 palettes separately. So all I want you to do is just take a minute, think about what you currently own, and see if it's similar to this one. So I'm showing you the way I'm doing it, but you can do it at home with your own personal palettes. So now that I've gotten that out of the way, I'm so sorry for everybody who always watches this video and always has to hear that. So if we go ahead and get into all of the results, I'll introduce myself to you. I'm Christina Brooke. I would love it if you guys want to hit that subscribe button so that YouTube will show you my videos, because if not, this may be the only time you'll ever see me, because I may never show up in your feed again. So anyways, now that we've gotten through the whole explanation, we're gonna get into finding these colors in my collection and what I was able to find out and how close I was able to get to these colors based off of the swatches that Too Faced released of their palette. So we're gonna go ahead and get into this right now. So I just wanna first tell you guys that I think I did okay. I mean, there was a few hues here that I have to say there was a little bit of a harder time finding because the Too Faced image was not like amazing. I was referencing between the swatches and also the colors on the palette themselves to kind of like get an idea of color story and undertone to see if I was able to get something similar. I think I was able to come out with a pretty similar color story. There may be like 1 or 2 colors that may be a tad off, but I think for the most part, we can see a color story that's happening here. And I will tell you guys, it's a gorgeous color story, but like I have found a lot of times, there is one palette that has a lot of these colors, and even though some of the colors are not exact, I feel like if you have that palette, you really do not need to buy this Too Faced one. But if you don't have that one, it's a pretty nice palette. So I'm gonna go ahead and show you my results. So these are my results. This is what I was able to come out with. And yeah, you know, I think for the most part, it was not the most difficult time finding these shades. I was able to find them in multiple palettes. I feel like what brands are doing right now is they're putting in some like random kind of colors into palettes so that it doesn't look similar to other palettes. And so that's why sometimes I have to jump into like multiple ones. But let me go ahead and show you guys the palettes that I found them in. So the first one was from Tilbury, and this is the Starry Eyes to Hypnotize palette. Then I was able to find a lot of shades from the Soft Glam from Anastasia. This palette right here was a pretty nice shade selection. So then also inside of the mini nude, which I didn't even realize how many times I was gonna pull this palette, but the mini nude has a few colors in it. And then finally, the last one. This palette has also been a palette I keep pulling from, and this is Violet Voss, and this is their Pro palette. Those 4 palettes, I was able to find a lot of the colors, and let me show you guys the results. Let's go over everything. Let's start off with color number 1. So color number 1 is called Tempera. So color number 1, very pretty, soft white with a little bit of like a taupe undertone. You can kind of find that inside of the Soft Glam. There's this color right up here, which if you guys see it swatched, this gives you a similar hue. If it shifts a little bit of a different color, will just depend on whether it shows up more on your lid or it won't. But I think it's very similar to this color. So it depends on what your skin tone is, but I believe that this is the color that you're gonna be seeing. And I feel like I have that one in the Soft Glam. And spoiler alert, I have that one in a few other palettes too, but I wanted to stick to this palette. So let's move on. That one I have. The next one I actually was looking at a few times and I jumped through different palettes, but the only one that I was able to kind of like really think looks similar is from Soft Glam too. There's this color called Fairy right here. And this one gives me like almost that same gold, but like a lighter champagne gold that I see going on in the Too Faced one. For this color, it's one of those colors that I had to go back and forth between the swatch and also the image of the palette and kind of like get an idea. Too Faced hasn't done any Insta stories or anything like they're swatching the palette, but I feel like between what I saw of the palette and also from the image of the swatch, it almost looks like it's a very similar hue to this one. If the color is off, probably off by a little. I do say this a lot and I just want you guys to really remember that sometimes when things are placed on the lid, the hues are off by very little. It's usually not that noticeable. So I just want to reiterate that because it is really important to note, because a lot of times people will say like, oh, but the hue is just a little bit off. Sometimes that's not a big difference. It usually matters if the hue is pretty different. That's when you'll start seeing a difference on the lid. So then if we keep going, the next color. Okay, so this color I looked at a couple different times, and when I was really staring at it, I said, okay, so this one looks like it's more of a cool tone brown. Soft Glam gave it to me again. Like this color Rustic right here, it has a more cool tone brown color. Like it literally looks like that color. So when I swatched them and I looked at the image from Too Faced, I was like, that looks really similar. I also referenced back to the image of the palette. I went back and forth a couple of times. I looked at a few different images of this palette, and I feel like this one has more of that cool tone brown color. So I do feel like right here we've got a pretty similar color story to what is going on in this Too Faced palette. So the next color was one that gave me a little bit of a harder time to find because the image is not that great. And going back and forth between the palette and the swatches, I went into the Love Glow inside of the Starry Eyes to Hypnotize, and I grabbed this color right here. And what I did was I put this one down, and it looks similar to the swatch. But looking at the actual palette, what I felt like I needed to do was grab a little bit of the Soft Glam color called Rose Pink. And what I did was I added Rose Pink on top of this one, and it turned this color into more of a pink gold. And that is more of the color that I think is going on in this palette. It's more of a rose gold pink. And I really like this color. I think it's really pretty. I feel like this color itself is a gorgeous color. It's very pretty. It's not gonna make me wanna buy the palette because I do feel like if I use this one right here on my lid, it's not gonna be like so off, you know? Yes, if I use maybe this one, it'll be a little bit more pink, but even that I'm like, I don't know. That's a color that I feel like I wasn't really able to find 100%. I did create a similar one, but I don't know. And I feel like if I looked a little deeper into other palettes, I might be able to find a very similar hue. But like I said, I try to stick to at least 4 palettes. Okay, so the next color. This color I've seen, and I've seen this multiple times, but I decided to grab it from the Charlotte Tilbury palette. It's this color right here in the Love Glow section, and I feel like if you guys have a lot of the new release palettes that have come out recently, you probably have this tone. This tone has been very popular. I actually really love this tone, but I love my Charlotte Tilbury formula. I would not like purchase this color in a Too Faced formula over my Charlotte Tilbury. So for that color, I am definitely good. Even if the Too Faced one's a tad bit darker, I'm good. I think that color, I have it, it's gorgeous. I love the Charlotte Tilbury one, so I'm good on that color. The next color, I was also kind of like, oh, do I have this one? I feel like this palette that I just purchased the other day because I had been dying for it for so long and I finally gave in, had so many other colors. So this color right here, bronze, hello, bronze looks so similar. And I just feel like this is just one of those beautiful colors, very neutral, not super like different by any means at all, but it's a really gorgeous color. I do feel like it's gonna look pretty similar to the one in the Too Faced one. The next one, I was like, ooh, a more warm looking brown. Where can I find that one? So what I did was I jumped into Sienna. And Sienna looked really similar, guys. I don't know. looking off the swatches, Sienna looks pretty similar, and if Sienna's a little bit off, it's not going to be probably that noticeable of a difference. Like once you blend all these eyeshadows together and create the eye looks, I don't know if you're going to be able to tell that Sienna might be a little lighter. I mean, like once you start to build this color up, I feel like it starts turning into that color. Now, the one that's in the new Too Faced one might have a little bit more burgundy in it, and if that is the case, you could grab a little bit of mulberry and you could add a little bit of mulberry into there to kind of give it a little bit more of a burgundy feel. So I do feel like even if it was more, if it went a little bit more red based, you could still find that. So I feel like that color I'm good on. Okay, now we've got a color here that I haven't seen until I looked at Sultry. And I said, wait a minute, Sultry. This color right here called Sultry in the ABH Soft Glam looks really similar as well. So I do feel like I have a similar hue in Sultry. And a lot of the colors here for the first portion of this palette I did find inside the Soft Glam. So I was pretty, you know, right now I'm pretty sold that this is a really pretty color story. But I pretty much am sold on the fact that I have it. Like I have it pretty good right now. Now there is a lot more shades now. I'm gonna work on this arm. I'm looking at this and going, this might give me stuff similar, so I'm not really sure if for me it's worth it. Some people it might be. But if we keep going, the next color is one that I had a little bit of a harder time just using these palettes. Guys, if I jumped into some of my other palettes, I feel like I could find this color, but I wanted to use the ones that I had out. So what I did was I jumped into the color Dream that's inside of Charlotte Tilbury, which is this really pretty color right here. And I just laid that one down to kind of get like a tone. I wanted to get the tone of it. And when I saw the tone of it, I felt like it went a little bit more champagne than I wanted it to. So what I did was I jumped into the Violet Voss Pro and I just grabbed the color right here on the top called Crystal, and grabbing a little tiny bit of crystal, not too much. You kind of just dab that on top of the Charlotte Tilbury one. You kind of get it a little bit more white based, and together they kind of form a little bit more of a white based metallic. That's more of the coloration that I think the Too Faced one is going to be. But trust me guys, this color, I've got this one in other palettes. Like I think Jaclyn Hill is one that I probably have it in. There's a few palettes that have this tone. So I like this next color, guys. It's really, really pretty. I like it a lot. Now, when I was looking at Soft Glam, it's kind of like what reminded me. I saw this color called Burnt Orange. So if I grab Burnt Orange, you guys can see it's almost like a little bit more of like an orange brown. It looks really similar, right? I mean, swatched, I was already going, okay, that's similar. But what I wanted to do was get it a little bit more orange. So I jumped into Orange Soda, which is also from the Soft Glam. And if you mix them both together, you do get a little bit more of an orange brown. And that color looked really similar. So I feel like that color is another color I can mimic using the Soft Glam, and it's a really pretty color. I really like it. I think it's really beautiful. All right, so this is where I think Too Faced started to change it up a little bit because they were like, you know, everybody's gonna think Soft Glam. Let's add a little bit of pinks. This is where I had to jump into the mini Huda palette. The big Huda palette, believe it or not, had some, but I feel like this one did a lot better. So this palette here gave me more hues. So what I did was for the next shade, I jumped into this shade right here. And if you guys can see, it's more like a pink metallic, but it has a little bit of a darker hue to it. Looking at the swatches and also looking at the coloration on the palette, I feel like this might be a similar hue. Now, this is one of the colors that in the photograph, I can't tell 100%. I feel like it might be a little bit off. I feel like it's gonna be a little bit more pink. When I look at the photograph of the palette, it goes more pink. And I would have liked to have seen like actual real swatches of this, like actually on somebody's arm, because usually those are the ones that I really like to go by because iPhones take such high quality pictures, guys, that usually iPhone images are so similar, so similar. So this color right here, I feel like is going to be the color. It might be a tad bit off. This one's going a little bit more pink, and the one in the swatch, it looks like it goes a little bit more peach, but I don't think it does. I think it goes more this color. So this is what I'm sticking to. I think it's gonna be more like this one. Next color is this color right here. It looks so similar. Oh my God. When I saw this color, I go, oh my goodness, that's the color. And I thought I wasn't gonna find this one again because I don't own that many palettes that have like that baby pink. And I said this just recently in another video. Baby pink is not a color I like to wear on my lids. So anytime I see it, I always think I don't have it. And then I always open this one and go, oh my God, I do have it. I don't use it, but I have it. So far guys, these two tones, very pretty. I would use this one a lot more than I would use this one, but they're both nice. So then the next color, I feel like looking at the swatches, looking at the palette, I do feel like Cranberry Splash that's inside of the Violet Voss palette is going to give you a more accurate color than any other color that I was able to look at. I feel like it's gonna have a little bit more of like this pink undertone to it. I feel like in the swatch, it looks a little lighter. But when I was looking at the palette itself, it looks more like this color. So between the swatch and the palette, I feel like it's gonna be more like this color. So this one's also another guess. I think it's more this route just because I don't think the swatches from Too Faced are that amazing. So the next color I was able to reference into this palette right here. So the Charlotte Tilbury palette has this color in Love Glow that actually looks a lot lighter in the pan than when you swatch it and you put it on your lid, you actually get a little bit darker. You see how much darker that applies than it actually looks in the pan? So this color right here applies so much darker and it looks very similar to that swatch. I think it may be similar to that tone when on the lid, but if it goes a little bit darker, you can always grab a little bit of Sienna, which is this color right here, and just pop that one on top and mix them together. And when you mix them both together, it stays in that same hue, but it gives it a little bit of a darker tint. Looking at this tone, it's pretty, but I think I can get away with just using this color and having a very similar eye look. So that color, I feel like, kind of have it, you know? So the next color I referenced into the Violet Voss palette, a lot of my other palettes didn't have a similar hue to this one. I thought that this one was going to be like one that I was going to find everywhere, and I do feel like if you have the Metropolis palette, you may be able to find this one in there. But like I said, didn't want to pull 500 palettes. I wanted to only pick 4. This color right here called Bat My Eyes. This is so similar. Like, it is so similar. Like, in the swatch, holy crap. Like, and this is such a good formula. And that color just reminds me so much of the color that I see in that swatch. And in the image of the palette, it also looks really similar. So I do think that this is kind of going in the direction of that palette. On my screen right now, and this also happened with the Love palette, my lights are so bright that it does kind of wash out the color a little bit. So last color, guys, last color, and I found it also in Violet Voss in this color right here called Teddy Bear. Teddy Bear to me looks so similar. I don't know. Doesn't it look similar? Like, this one takes a little while to build up, to be honest. This color right here in this palette is not my favorite. Not my favorite color in this palette. It takes a while to build up. But once you build this color up, you do have a very similar hue. And obviously, when you're working with a shadow that has to be built up on the lid, you build it up on the lid. You don't leave it like half gone. So when you build up this color, it does give you a very similar hue to the one that's inside of the new Too Faced palette. So looking at these two color stories together, I will tell you, this is a color story that's very, very easy to use. I feel like this side right here is giving you a very soft romantic side. It gives you a little bit more darker. It also adds a little bit more color. So this is a very pretty palette. Like, I know a lot of you probably think it's boring, but like I've said in the beginning of the video, boring sometimes is good, especially when you want to have a palette that is very easy to use, very universal. You can go anywhere and just pop these colors together. And I think that everybody should have 1 or 2 of those kind of palettes. They're really handy. They really are. So I like this color story. I think it's pretty. I think they did a very good job curating the palette. I personally just don't feel like I need it. Even though I do feel like some of the colors on this side may not be exact, I feel like the Soft Glam palette, if you own this, or because I own it, I feel like this palette is gonna give me so many of these kind of looks that the difference of looks that I didn't create with the Soft Glam, I could probably just get out of this palette right here. Now, when it comes to the pinky hues that I saw in this palette, to be 100% honest, hardly ever use the pinky tones. Like, the pinky tones are just not my jam. Like, I just don't jump into pink that often. A metallic pink probably would be the route I would take. I would probably take something more like this, like a rose pink that comes out of the Soft Glam. That's more my speed. I don't feel like this color right here is going to get that much use out of me. But now that I've actually seen it, I've seen it swatched a couple of times, I almost feel like, damn, I gotta start using this palette again, because I do own that shade. I own it, guys. I have a very similar color. So because I do, I need to start using this palette. I need to use these shades. These shades are gonna go bad. Why am I gonna buy another palette just because it's in one palette for a shade that I already own. I personally, after doing all of this, I just really feel like I really do not need this palette. It's a very nice color story, very easy to use. It reminds me a lot of like Charlotte Tilbury, like a very easy eye palette, you know, like the colors are kind of curated in a way that they could all work together. I think it was really nice and well thought out. I just bought this palette just recently, guys, and I love it. I think it's gorgeous, and I need to use this one, and I feel like this one's going to give me a lot of those same looks, so it's not worth it for me to pick up. So I have made up my mind, I don't need it, but have you made up your mind? So the first question has to be answered here. Do you even need this palette? If your answer is yes, now you move on to the second part. Do you like the Too Faced formula? Is it a formula that you like? Is it good enough for you to want to add to your collection? So that would be what you would decide after you decide if this color story is something that you would use and whether you need it. So let me know down below in the comments section if this palette reminded you of any other palettes that are in the market right now or any of the palettes that are in your current collection. I want to know. Love to read what you guys compare it to. It's so fun. So this eye look is an eye look that you would be able to create if you purchase this new Too Faced palette, because I did use a lot of these similar hues to create this look, and it will be featured on Mimic That palette. That's going to be coming very soon. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Don't forget to take 1 second just to hit that subscribe button so you see me again, and I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.